What's the point of getting things done if you don't know what you're gonna get done? What's the point of getting things done if you didn't look at what you did before? What's the point of me making this video, except for showing you how to build a second brain and incorporate great principles into your Notion workspace that you can use forever, or as long as Notion's an app. And some of those principles you can also learn by checking out my course, Mastering Notion. As I've said before, you can either buy this template or you can go on Skillshare, watch the course on how to use Notion, and then follow along this series to learn how to set this whole thing up. If you do those things, you'll probably be better at Notion than you were prior. If you don't get any better, then either A, you're already a pro, or B, I suck at making content, which is completely possible. So first, what I'm gonna do is go to right here and then just make a new tab for the review page. And then I'm gonna snag some space here by doing a /column2, and then making sure that I make some H2s here. And what I'm essentially gonna do is make some toggle H2s that separate things a little bit. So if I just make something called day reviews and separate these by dividers, I'm gonna make a system that takes you through a workflow that really helps you do daily reviews, weekly reviews, and monthly reviews, because there are a lot of things on your mind. There are a lot of things that you did, and it's nice to decompress and understand necessarily what your workflow is like and whether it can be improved or whether you're too stressed. If you don't reflect on things and you don't really distill that information, you're never gonna, honestly, you're probably not gonna feel good about your productivity. That's my thought on it. So that's why we're doing this. We're creating a quick setup here. We got monthly reviews. And then on the right, what I would do is drag this one tick to the right, and then we're gonna do a toggle H2 again for a couple different things that we already have. So we're gonna go to views here, and we're gonna snag a couple views. So we're gonna right click the inbox, paste this in here, and then do the exact same thing for, let's duplicate this, and then pro tip, if you grab a couple blocks, hold Alt, go to the 6 dots, and drag, it duplicates it. Now what we're gonna do is remove these and then replace it with a couple other items. So we have projects as a page, and then we have goals as a page. So this is essentially gonna be a page where we can review the different items like in our overall inbox. As has been mentioned previously in this series, we have some universal statuses in the system. So if we go back to the home page, we can see an example of this. So first I'm gonna go to this inbox, and I'm essentially just gonna copy what's in here because we have a synced block and we have a general inbox. We can just paste that in there. And then from the project side, what we're gonna do is go back into the projects page, and you'll remember here, we have this filter set up where project status is review. So we can just grab this project inbox and then open up the toggle and slide it in there. And then once we get to the goals page, we can just follow that exact same step where the status would be review, and we could just paste that right in there. We're gonna be working on that in a couple steps from now, but it's the same principle. We have this universal property where we have review, which is on this page, or like an inbox status. Then we have active, which is stuff that's currently going on. And then we have archived for clearing out things that we're not really gonna look into again, but we don't necessarily wanna delete anything because that's just not best practices, because accidentally deleting something is kind of pointless when you have unlimited cloud storage. So now with this, what we can do is we can open this view up and essentially work on our journal database. So this is gonna be a GTD workflow. So the great part about this is we're not only going to just take notes, but we're going to have a very nice workflow within a daily, weekly, and monthly review so that we can make sure we input task projects, notes, all that sort of stuff into a journal that then we can look at later. So by going back to our homepage and then going to the databases page, we're gonna tweak this on the back end. So first of all, we obviously can copy this link and just paste out a created linked view, and just clean this up by calling it journal, changing this to a book icon here, and then I like hiding this always. And then we can open up one of the pages and start working on the properties. So a couple of the different properties that we're gonna look at here are gonna be a date property, so entry date / range, created time. We can also just put a little select property that shows our mood. And that mood property is gonna be pretty simple. We can just basically on Windows, press Windows period, and then type star. And you can also do something very similar to get an emoji keyboard on Mac. And I'm just gonna put a star in there, then copy the star. I'm gonna just basically make a star for each out of 5. So we made 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're gonna go 5 here. Then we're also gonna put a formula called date, which is very similar to the one we did for tasks. So the reason for this is, say we make it on a certain date, that could be the default date, but we might override that if we're doing backfilling. So this is basically gonna say if empty, and then we're gonna pick the property entry date range, because this is like the manual input. Then we're gonna parentheses close it. Then we do equals true. So this is basically saying, like, if we haven't entered anything in this, then we're gonna pick the created time, because that's just gonna be auto-generated. And then another comma here would mean else. And then if it's not empty, then we're gonna obviously pick the entry date range, because that's what we entered. Then we can close this off with another parentheses. So then, as you can see, by default, it's gonna do the created time, but if I change it to here, it's gonna update it. And then if I remove it, it's gonna update it once again, and that's how that goes. Now we already have a lot of these different things set up. So what I'm gonna do is connect it to a few different databases. So the only other relations we really need to do are the habits database, which, by the way, you can always go back here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a quick habit tracker, because this is actually like a core part of the thing that I sell in the template. So we're gonna do just a little habit tracker, and this is going to be in a future tutorial. So in this database page, really quick, I'm just gonna change this name to habit tracker DB second brain XX, which is the classic naming convention, just so you guys can see this as an example. So pop this in here, and then make all the names that we have the relation to just journal. I'm gonna pick habits. Then we're pretty close here. Just need to do the meetings and notes one. So add this meetings and notes database, second brain, XX, and then once again, just rename it and notes. And we got journal. And luckily the rest of these are already pretty much here. So I'm gonna show a couple of these as minimal. The areas one is minimal, projects is minimal. Actually, we can drop all these as minimal just to help with the workflow of the system. And then we can right click on this, edit the property, and change the icon. So let's do layer, wrench for project, check mark, and then like a more fancy check mark, verification symbol. And then let's do a writing one. And now there's only a few more properties, and these are basically gonna be the crux of how a lot of this gets filtered out. So if we go to select, we're gonna then do what's called frequency. So like, what kind is it? Is it a day journal? Is it a week journal, month, or just an ad hoc one? So it's like a daily GTD one, weekly, we could do monthly, or ad hoc. Now this one's gonna be important. What we're gonna do now is create a few formulas to make sure that the filtering is done correctly on this. So we do a formula, say this month, question mark, parentheses, and then format date. Then we're gonna pick the date property. Then we're gonna put a comma, and then we're gonna mark this as the month. So we're basically saying format the date to just show the month, make it equal to, and then we do another format date, and we're gonna basically ask it, okay, does this equal now and the month that it is now? And we can do this exact same thing and then duplicate this. And then we're gonna do this year, question mark. So this year, all we'd have to do is, you guessed it, in the formula, change Y or change M out for Y for both of these. And then this is totally up to you, but what I would do is I would recommend that you essentially just hide these properties. So I don't really like looking at, you know, these like this year, this month property. We just hide those, and then you're gonna be left with all the properties you need. And then we're gonna clean up this database over here on the left, create the daily, weekly, and monthly reviews sections, and then we can work on the templates that you'll be working in. That'll be the nice system for cleaning up your brain at the end of every day, week, and month. So what I'm gonna leave here, in my opinion, is just the date, the mood, and the entry date/range. So if you wanna override it from the created date, you can. And then how I'm gonna sort this is by date, and then make it descending. So essentially the most recent one would be at the top. It's up to you which direction you want us to go. Then we can filter to where date advanced relative to today is this week. And then the frequency is day, because we basically only want to just see the day reviews right here. And then we're gonna copy this link to the view, or you can duplicate it, or you can hold Alt and drag it like I showed you earlier, and do the same for the month one. And you guessed it from the other ones, what we're gonna do is we're gonna filter this to this month is checked off, and we can do and this year is checked off. So then we can kind of look at the different views that we have once we make sure that we check off also this monthly or this weekly one, So we're essentially just having a bunch of different weekly reviews shown here. And then we're gonna do that same thing, except for we're just gonna select this year for the monthly reviews. Now it's completely up to you, and you can obviously add other reviews in here and other views. So like we can duplicate this out and then just do journal all and leave out the filter requiring it to be anything but just monthly. And then the same for the other one. We're just gonna like put monthly, but leave it's also this year there. Then we can do that for the weekly one. So just remove the time constraint. So just making sure that it's like a weekly review. And then the same for the day review. So just duplicate this out, let's do all, then remove that filter to be just any of the daily ones. Now, what is really nice is you can actually group these. So I'm gonna group this based off of the date property by month. And then you have the option to sort it by oldest first, newest first. I'm probably gonna do newest first for these. And then you're able to group the same thing for the other journal. So let's just group this by dates, and then let's pick month, then newest first. And then for this, you have the option to, group it by year, I guess. For the other ones, you don't really have to group this one. It's totally up to your discretion, right? Like how do you want to group them? For me, I think I'll probably just group this monthly review by year. Go here, year, and then newest first. So now we've got a lot of this set up. We just literally need to make the journal. So now we're gonna have daily, weekly, and monthly views for how to distill this information. So what we can do is we can go to this spot right here, create a new template, and drop a note. So I like this little pad here. So let's pick document square. So what I wanna go with here, then we're gonna wanna make sure that we select a specific frequency. So this is gonna be a daily journal entry. Let's do daily journal entry. And then I'm gonna put at today here. This is an optional thing I'm adding here. So then if we click off and we set this as default for only on this journal view, it'll create it for this day. Then we're gonna follow this same system. So we're gonna duplicate this. We can remove the today spot right here. We do weekly journal entry. Then we're gonna put weekly, then just pick a calendar. I mean, just anything. Then once again, we're gonna select this as the default for only this view. Then last but not least, we're gonna do that exact same thing, duplicate the weekly one, change the icon to another calendar, then change this to a monthly option, and then set it to the default journal on that view. Now here's where the fun comes. Personally, this is the vibe I like going with for my journal. Totally get, everyone has their own preference, but this is what I think can help a lot of you out. We're gonna do a /toggle H3. I'm gonna put what I accomplished, and then I like putting emojis, so we can put a little check mark here. And it's up to you the size you want of the headers, H2s, H3s, it really doesn't matter that much. And then within this, we can drop a little bulleted list, type some text, press enter, delete it out. And then we're gonna do a toggle block, and then I'm gonna call it connect to journal. And since this is a day property, what we're then gonna be able to do is, first of all, take a task database view. So let's snag this action center really quick and just copy this. We're gonna paste this out. And what this is essentially gonna do is it's gonna give you a workflow where you can first connect tasks that you did today. So this guy is just gonna literally be filtered to only out of everything. We're gonna delete this filter out. Date is today. So that when you start connecting the journal and you work on the journal, you can then hide everything else and just literally put that, and then maybe the checkbox that is a status name, and you can quickly connect this to that journal. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing for, you guessed it, the other items that are here. So that would be the projects, so a little wrench action. We're gonna pick the source, and the source will be projects, DB, second brain, and the classic XX. Then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna like clear out the properties, I'm gonna filter it to the date is today. I'm obviously gonna rename this and just call it projects and make the wrench right here. And then you can do the same thing for your habits database. Now, obviously I didn't work in that yet too much, but let's just quickly go in here and from that habits database that you created earlier, let's just make a date property that you can select there. So we'll go in this, pick the habits or habit tracker database, second brain, XX, snag that. And then once again, rename it to habits, put the icon that you want there, then just filter it to date is today. And when we get to the end of this, basically what we're doing is we're making it so that all of these pop up on the day, right? But then after you end up connecting it to the journal, you're going to, with these systems right here, basically be able to have it statically be viewable on later dates. That's why you need this connect to journal spot. And then the last view is going to be for meetings and notes. DB second brain XX. You can hide this, hide pretty much anything except for the journal. Select the journal. Obviously we'll tweak the icons later. Might as well do it now. We can rename this to meetings and notes. Put a little writing symbol there. And then a lot of this is going to get much quicker in a second. So we've filtered these. You can filter this to, once we add a property to the meeting notes that is day based, put date, and then filter it to date is. Now what we're then gonna do is basically duplicate this, and I'm gonna add a little space here, and just watch the magic. What we're then gonna do is do static for review. And this static for review is now gonna change the filter from is it today to is the journal, you got it, the database template. So if you guys are familiar, essentially changing this filter to journal is the template will filter all the newly created items exactly to this the next time you use the template. So we'll show you an example once it's created, but it's very simple workflow the second this is all created. And create contains today journal. Now what we can do is add a couple nicer prompts in there. So we can just put a couple different things I'm gonna copy over, which are gonna be toggle H2s of what am I grateful for? Today's failures. How can I improve? And then last but not least, we're gonna do a toggle H2 for action items and inbox review. So then we can just put a little inbox emoji here, put a little dot, and then put some text in there, press enter to get out the space, delete the text out. Then we can snag the different inbox views that we've had. So the very end of this system, if we go to the home page, kind of forces you to look at your inbox. So copy link, paste this in here. We can rename this to a task inbox. It's going to be multiple in there. So task inbox, put a little check mark, and then we can pick the projects database, select that, change it to a good old fashioned wrench project view name. And then we can filter this to status is review, since that's our good old inbox status. And then I'm personally just going to put a couple properties like the, assigned to, and maybe a project timeline, but not much else. And then you pretty much have the structure of what the rest of these are going to look like. So now when we go back to, we go here, we go to our review page. When we press on this new journal entry, we open it up. If we had some tasks for today, we'd be able to connect this to this entry, and then it's gonna be connected to it moving forward, so that when we can always look back and review on this day and see what we ended up doing, and maybe can reflect even further. And then for this, we obviously have some of the other ones like today's failures, how can I improve, and we can just go through this workflow and reflect. Now, what I will admit is that I did make a bit of a mistake and think you should actually probably duplicate it from this point on. So sorry, but go through that same process of duplicating this, rename it to weekly journal entry, and then go from there. So I would delete the old ones out. So you'll be able to tell which is which by just checking what has anything in there. So I'm gonna delete this one out, delete this one out, then duplicate the weekly one, go monthly journal entry, and then put a monthly calendar, and change this to monthly. And the reason for that is when you duplicate it, it's gonna keep this static for review filter here. And then you could guess what the filters are gonna be, but all we're gonna change is this. We're gonna change the date. I'm gonna do date is relative to today, past 1 week, and then filter. And then just do that for all of them. So filter, project is relative to today, past 1 week, and then go through all of them. And this is essentially going for a 1 week look back window of any different task that we've done or journal we've taken. And then the same process would happen, right? We'd just filter it to and select to the monthly journal entry or the weekly journal entry. And then in the monthly one, we can do date is relative today, and then we can change it to 4 weeks because that's how long a month is. Or we can make it this month property for all of these different ones. And I actually do that in the template, but I don't want to waste your time and show you how to make it this month property again. This is just a quick hack to make it happen. Not sure whether you can do 4.5 weeks. That would actually be ideal. If that works properly, I'm sure that would be best. 4.25 even. It's interesting. We'll see. Past 1 month even is an option, which is definitely interesting. So we can do that. They've definitely improved the filtering recently, and I haven't played with everything, but you have choices to tinker around with. The formulas are the ones that I'm most familiar with, but that's just because I had to do it for so long. We do months, past month one, past month one, cool. And then now we would set the default right here for this view for weekly, and then set this view for monthly. And it's the same workflow. You just go in here, create one, and then connect it to the journal. So yeah, Buy Mom Flowers was this weekly journal entry. And once again, you can optionally put at today because it'll like change the day later. It's completely up to you. Same with the monthly journal entry. This will be the default one. And then when you go to connect a journal, you can select this monthly journal entry and it will stick on the static one for later. This was a long one, but I hope that you see the value in having a GTD journal because I'm able to distill what I did for the day, reflect on what I'm grateful for, talk about today's failures, see how I can improve, and then go into my inbox. It's all about building that practice. And yes, it takes some time to get this kind of stuff done, but in my opinion, it's worth it. Just like it's worth it to check out this video on how to improve your productivity even more.